We're keeping tabs on the latest breaking stories. A suspected leader of the Boko Haram terrorist group, simply identified as Umar, has been arrested by security operatives in Lagos. A statement by the police says that the suspect was arrested on Thursday by men of the Inspector General of Police Intelligence Response Team. 4 members of Umar's gang were arrested 3 weeks ago in Abuja, but the suspect fled with gunshot wounds. The suspect is the leader of the dreaded group of insurgents which carried out a number of attacks in different parts of the country. What does this mean to the government's determination to defeat Boko Haram? Data feeds are coming through in one place simultaneously on all our social media platforms, channelstv.com and on youtube.com/channelsweb, where you can find our videos as well. Be part of the show. Tweet at Gimba Umar CTV and use the hashtag State of the Nation. Let's get your thoughts in. In the meantime, the police says that they have recovered the bodies of 5 people killed by a group of armed bandits who attacked a village in Zamfara State. The spokesperson of the Zamfara State Police Command, Muhammad Shehu, disclosed this while confirming the attack. In a statement on Thursday, he said the bandits invaded Gidan Halilu village in Burdin Magaji local government area of the state on Wednesday and attacked some villagers who were on their farms. What more can security forces do to protect the lives of the people in Zamfara State in the wake of sustained attacks by bandits? The National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, has asked the National Assembly members to apologize to Nigerians for their unruly behavior during President Muhammad Buhari's 2019 budget presentation. Mr. Aziz Adeyemi, the PRO of NANS, made the call on Friday in Abeokuta. Adeyemi condemned the lawmakers' behavior, saying that it had further tarnished the external image of the country. He asked the lawmakers to always promote the integrity of the country while according due respect to its leaders. We'll look into that in just a moment. It's prime time here in Lagos, and this is State of the Nation. Into that particular rowdy session we saw on Wednesday, and Halilu Muhammad is a member of the APC, a chieftain of the APC, and he also sought to be governor of Adamawa State in the recently concluded party primaries. He joins me from our Abuja studios. I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us. Also with me in the studio here is Zaka Bala. He's a chartered accountant, an economist and policy analyst. He joins me as well in the studios. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for joining me on the show. But let me start with you, Mr. Mohammed. You saw that rowdy session during the president's budget presentation on Wednesday, and the backlash it has largely generated. NANS, the National Association of Nigerian Students, wants the National Assembly to apologize to Mr. President for what it calls unruly behavior towards him. Are you in support of that view?
Not only the NANS, I believe the entire Nigerians, or the red, we call it both the red and the green carpet, the whole Nigerian deserve to have an apology from them. Because of what we have never seen such a thing, such kind of thuggery, or the kind of unruly behavior that was displayed by some of them. Even though we know it's not everybody that was engaged, which we understand that is part of the democratic process. We also know that in democracy, it gives the privilege of freedom of speech, freedom of expression. But we have what is called ethics. We have something that we know if we do it, there's a backlash. Like some of the senators that stood up and were shouting at the president while performing his constitutional duties, I believe not only NANS, but the entire Nigerian deserve an apology to them. And after they apologize to Nigerian, we will tell them, let them go back to their constituencies, to their various constituencies, to know whether the booing of Mr. President, it is channeled to his personality or to Nigerian. They will understand how Nigerians are angry about that unruly behavior. And I believe that will serve as a deterrent
while some may,
not to do that again.
While some people may agree with you on this, others may not. In fact, some political analysts believe that this is just politics that's playing out.
Yeah, we know politics. We have freedom. Everybody has a freedom of speech. Everybody has a freedom of expression. But for every game, there's a rules, a regulation. And I believe why we elected them, why Nigeria elected them, is to go and legislate and make the law, not to boo at somebody or not to engage in toggery, because that's toggery. Like some of the senators or members that were there, we know it's not everybody that will say that he likes Mr. President as a person. We know it's obvious that there are some people that naturally doesn't like him. But there are ways of doing things. As far as I'm concerned, it's not everybody in that chamber that is a distinguished senator or honorable member. There are those that are unhonorable. There are some that are there like more or less opportunists, which they went there just to create chaos and so on and so forth. If you remember last week, the same thing, such a thing, but in a matured way, has happened in the House of Commons in UK, where the Prime Minister was trying to answer on the question and answer session at the MP, at the House of Commons. She was taunted and so on and so forth, but she maintained her ground to an extent that a vote was casted and she won. But this is what we call democracy. This is what we call maturity. This is what we call honorable. This is what we call distinguished. But not an issue where a president performing his constitutional duty of presenting the budget of the 2019 fiscal year, that somebody will be there or talks will be there shouting. That's not what we elect them to go and do there.
Okay, let me take it away from you for a second and come to Zakabala. Let's look at that particularly, because one wonders what this says about the 8th Assembly and all those boos and praises we saw from different members that were there. The president was prompted to say this. He said, we should be above this, he said to the lawmakers. He has the actions of the lawmakers as one that has really disturbed the president. But at this time, does it take anything take away from the respect accorded to the president's office?
Not really. I think the key thing is to appreciate the way the president approached it. At the end of the day, things were calmed. That's the key thing, you know, because you are just talking about probably likely exchange of banters. If the president has reacted in a different manner, probably will have seen something worse. So the key thing there is when you are being booed or jeered at, how do you respond? I think the maturity, the leadership qualities, and the charisma that the president demonstrated that day was, I mean, to me, worthy of praise and emulation.
So the planned boycott by the opposition largely failed?
Well, I don't know if they plan to boycott it, but you know, before that time, there was a chronology, if we may put it that way. I mean, we were not even sure the National Assembly complex was going to be open for them. And also before that time, we have been having inter and intra-party collusions and bad blood. So many things were already going on. But the key thing is, in situations like that, at the end of the day, did we succeed in achieving the objective of Mr. President's presentation of the appropriation bill? The answer is yes. As they have left now, will they only go away and get themselves swallowed in their campaigns and will not want to look at it so that we pass it into law? That's another thing. I will expect and hope that when they get back, they will soon congregate, go through it. If there is a need for public sitting, let the public sit, analyze it, and let them pass it so that it becomes an act.
Well, Mr. Mohammed, could this have been handled better considering that frosty relationship between the legislature and the presidency? Of course, you'll recall that there were calls by members of the opposition in the House to actually carry out the boycott of the president's presentation.
Well, as said by the other speaker there, the leadership quality displayed by Mr. President is something to be worthy of emulation. You can now understand, even when they were booing him, he maintained his ground and keep on doing what brought him there. That is his constitutional duty. And he achieved in doing what is required by the Constitution. But truly, what's happening in the red chamber, particularly because the green chamber is a little bit more matured, which reverse is the case. We expect them to be an elders at the red chamber. Maybe the green chamber is also a representative, which there are young people there. But the reverse is the case. What we're saying is not what we thought a taxpayer's money has been paid to get them there, for them to legislate, make law. And this is something that affects each and every Nigerian, because without the budget, there's nothing that the government can do. So, and the president took his time to go and make the presentation. But at the end of the day, something was pre-planned by just few of them, with the rowdy session, booing, and so on and so forth. But what took the president there was 100% achieved. But it is now left to them and the Nigerians that we know that they are our enemy number one. And we know they are coming back to there are various constituencies.
But
we know
you also know that this is indeed the first time that the president will be presenting a budget to an largely opposition-led National Assembly, especially drawing from the defections of top officials of the Senate and House of Representatives, if you will. Is this budget going to experience hitches? As you know, the recess is on, and then the need for the 3 months to go through the documents by the lawmakers. But I'll ask you that question very shortly when we return after this break. Stay with us. ABC chieftain Haladu Muhammad is in our Abuja studios. Let me get your thoughts on this. Is the budget, do you think, going to experience hitches? As you know, the recess of the National Assembly is in effect, and they need just about 3 months to go through that document.
Yeah, you can now understand the polity in the country is a little bit not that what we expect as in heat up. No. It's just one-sided, and it's obvious, even a blind man or somebody that is not a politician knows very well that APC has taken over the country in all sense of directions, both from the ward level up to the local government, to the state and the federal. So some of these people that we call senators, the so-called senators, especially those that were trying to bring hitches here and there, are those that knows that they are not coming back. They know they can't go back to their constituency and even ask or even attempt to look for a re-election. They know definitely they can't do that. So some of them definitely, they will try to see that they put a stunning block to see that the budget is not passed before they are going. But all this, having said that, is at the back of our mind. We know who is the enemy of the state. Is it the executive or the legislatives? We know so many things happened, even prior to the eve of the election, like this 2019, which we are at the eve of election now. We know so many things happened.
Okay,
like the
if you allow me to just button very quickly,
if you allow me to just button
very quickly, and just so that we're able to cover as much ground as possible, and look at some of these key assumptions. Let me come to you. You're the economist, and you've seen those estimates that were given, the assumptions and the numbers, $60 per barrel. But today, incidentally, OPEC has given Nigeria its quota.
Correct. And in summary, it's a very tight budget, but it's achievable. That's it. This is where actual planning comes in. This is where thinking out of the box comes in. You know, because some hours ago, we were given our quota. and Nigeria is allowed to produce a maximum of 1.68 million barrels per day. When the president was making his presentation and he came up with a figure of 2.3, of course it included what we call condensates. But now the practical crude oil is 1.68. So there is a difference or a differential of about 620,000 barrels. So, and that must be condensate. And let me explain condensates in this case. Condensates technically is gas, but is gas that we call light oil. So what generally happens is this: in the reservoir, at a given pressure that you hold constant, when the temperature starts going down, that gas shrinks or condenses and become oil. It is very, very light, and it is excluded when OPEC is talking about quota distribution. So what we need to do now is this: with the OPEC value given to us as 1.68, right, we need to produce the condensate or that light oil up to the value of 620,000 barrels per day, and that will balance it up to the 2.3 million barrels per day. That's one. The key thing again we need to look at is this: countries, that have other maybe non-conventional oil like the shale oil are ramping up, and there is every likelihood that from next year prices of crude oil globally may not get to the hundreds or the 80s. So what we need to also look at is to probably look at the benchmark crude oil price that we wanted to use. My understanding was that
$60 per barrel is okay?
To me, that was my understanding.
Is it realistic?
Not now. It was actually the value for the medium-term expenditure framework when we were looking at it 2019 to 2021. I always want a differential of at least $10 between global crude oil benchmark and a local country's benchmark. And in our own context, if the price is hovering around $60 per barrel, our benchmark should be like 50 or slightly less than $50 per barrel.
Let me get your thoughts on this, Malam Haladu, because this budget, it basically looks at the properties of the 2019 budget. Taking a look at that, my apologies, but those projections, when we have those adjustments to reflect current realities, it's one good way to go. But on the expenditure side, allocations to ministries, departments, agencies of government were guided by three objectives of the ERGP, which are for restoring sustainable growth and investing in our people, and of course building a global competitive economy. Do you think that the 2019 budget, as it stands today, with those assumptions that we have, can it stand the test of time, take people out of poverty, for instance?
Well, if you just look at, Mr. Gimba, if you look at 2016, 17, and 18 fiscal year, the federal government earmarked capital project, I think, is the largest in the entire history of Nigeria. And we are now seeing the dividend in all our country. And I heard the Minister of Works, Fashola, and Works, Power and Housing was saying that there is no state in Nigeria that at least doesn't have a single road that was made by the federal government. So looking at the 3 years of APC government, we can see everywhere we go, and it's glaring, it's not a fiction, that what the government has done for us in 3 years compared to the previous 16 years that has made by the PDP. So going by this fiscal year, which we know that the price, as one economist was analyzing, now I'm hearing him, it's not something that we cannot say we cannot have the optimism that let's have the price of oil, maybe the benchmark should go up higher than what we have today. And our production of 1.6 something barrel per day, million per day, should have been given at least 2 million barrel per day. That could have been better. But having said that, our economy is doing very good. In the book, you know, we are in recession, we are out of the recession. But even the typical ordinary person in Nigeria saying that we are in Hungary, we are in Hungary.
But my question to you is, can this budget, in your view, can this budget get Nigerians, we understand that over 80 million Nigerians are living below poverty lines, can this help to get people out of poverty? I'm afraid that's where we're going to have to leave it. We're out of time, but I must thank you, Haladu Muhammad, and chieftain of the APC, talking to us from our Abuja studios, as well as Zakabala, an economist, the chartered accountant, and a policy analyst. Thank you so much indeed for talking to us here on the show as well. And thanks to you for being part of the show. I'm Gimba Umar. This is State of the Nation, and we'll see you same time next week. Bye for now.